Once upon a time, there was a big orange cat named Charles. He lived on the streets of Eastern Oregon, toughing it out in a world where every day was a fight to survive. His fur was scruffy, marked with scars, and his green eyes carried a hint of sadness. But Charles wasn't just any street cat. There was something unique about him. His meow was unforgettable. It was raspy, high-pitched, and so full of character that it almost sounded like words. People who heard him couldn't help but stop and wonder, is he trying to tell us something? One afternoon, a kind woman heard this strange meow outside her house. She froze for a moment, listening. She had never heard a sound like that from a cat before. Curious, she looked out the window and spotted Charles sitting there, staring back at her, as if he had something important to say. She called her husband over, and they both laughed, saying the cat sounded like he was trying to talk. But Charles wasn't just making noise. His meow seemed like a cry for connection. The woman decided to leave him some food, and Charles gratefully accepted it. Over the next few days, she started feeding him regularly. Slowly, Charles began to trust her. For the first time, he felt the warmth of kindness and a place to rest. Charles was no longer just a stray. He was finding a home. Determined to give Charles a better life, the woman started calling local shelters, hoping to find him a safe home. But every shelter she contacted was full. Some even warned her that Charles might be too hard to handle because of his rough life on the streets. This made her worry, but she wasn't ready to give up. She had seen the way he leaned into her hand for head scratches, how he purred softly when she came near. Despite his scars and tough past, Charles was gentle and full of love. He deserved a real chance. One day, the woman noticed something was wrong. Charles wasn't himself. His fur, usually bright orange, looked dull, and he seemed weaker. He no longer greeted her with his happy meows or head bumps. It broke her heart to see him like this. Wrapping him in a warm blanket, she took him to a small rescue shelter she hadn't tried yet. The shelter wasn't fancy and didn't have much funding, but they offered Charles a safe place to rest and recover. The workers quickly realized Charles needed serious care. Tests revealed he had feline immunodeficiency virus, FIV, a common condition in street cats. He also had old injuries that left scars across his body and teeth, so damaged that eating had become painful. Despite all of this, Charles never stopped being sweet. He didn't hiss or scratch. He simply let them help. Charles had been through so much, but his kind heart never changed. Now, he had people fighting to give him the life he truly deserved. He wasn't like other street cats who were wary of people. Charles loved being around them. He would purr loudly and lean in for head scratches whenever the shelter staff came close. His playful and loving nature made him stand out right away. It was clear to everyone that Charles wasn't just another stray. He had a special spirit, one that stayed hopeful even after years of struggling on the streets. But as much as they adored Charles, his medical issues made it hard to find him a permanent home. He needed regular care and would have to live indoors for the rest of his life to stay safe and healthy. The shelter staff did everything they could to help him recover, but their resources were limited. So, they reached out to other shelters, hoping to find someone who could give Charles the care he deserved. Not long after, they heard from Heather Feota, the communications manager at a shelter in Sherwood, Oregon. Heather was excited to meet Charles, especially after hearing about his unique meows that sounded like he was trying to talk. Heather welcomed Charles into her shelter, and his new journey began. He received all the medical care he needed: dental surgery to fix his teeth, treatment for a bladder infection, and even a neutering procedure to keep him healthy. As Charles started to heal, his energy came back. He became more vocal, filling the shelter with his adorable squeaks and chirps. Everyone quickly fell in love with him. It was as if Charles wasn't just meowing. He was truly talking, sharing his story with the world. One day, while Charles was lounging in his favorite sunny spot, something amazing happened. He let out one of his usual meows, but this time, it sounded different. A volunteer who was visiting him paused, listening carefully. She could have sworn she heard him say, "Hello?" At first, she thought she was imagining things, but then Charles did it again. This time, it was clear. He had said, "Hello." The volunteer couldn't believe it. Charles wasn't just meowing, he was trying to talk. Word spread quickly around the shelter. Everyone wanted to see if it was true. Volunteers started recording Charles, and sure enough, his meows sounded like words. He seemed to respond to people, as if he were holding a conversation. It was unlike anything they'd seen before. Videos of Charles's talking were shared online, and soon, people from all over were falling in love with him. It wasn't just his bright orange fur or his soulful green eyes, it was his personality that made him stand out. His charm and his unique way of talking captured hearts everywhere. One of those people was Charlotte, a kind woman from Oregon who had recently lost her beloved cat. She had been missing the joy and comfort of having a pet. When she saw Charles's video, it felt like a sign. She knew he needed someone who would care for him and love him unconditionally. She was sure she could be that person. Charlotte decided to adopt Charles, giving him the forever home he truly deserved. After watching the video, Charlotte couldn't stop thinking about Charles. There was something special about this big orange cat with his unique meows and gentle spirit. She reached out to the shelter, and before long, she was on her way to meet him. When she arrived, Charlotte felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had loved cats her whole life, but Charles felt different, like he was meant to be part of her life. Heather, the shelter worker, guided her to where Charles was resting. Charlotte's heart raced as they approached. There he was, lying in a sunny spot by the window. Charles looked up as they came closer, his green eyes lighting up as if he recognized her. With a soft chirp, he greeted her. Charlotte knelt down and extended her hand. Charles, true to his sweet nature, leaned in and gave her a gentle headbutt. He purred loudly as she scratched behind his ears, and in that moment, Charlotte felt an instant bond. She knew right then that Charles was the one. The adoption process was quick, and soon Charles was on his way to his new home. Charlotte had prepared everything for him, a cozy bed, fun toys, and plenty of treats. But most importantly, she was ready to give him all the love he had been missing. Charles settled in right away. His chirps and quirky meows filled the house, bringing endless joy to Charlotte. He wasn't just a cat to her, he was family. From a stray struggling to survive, Charles had found his place in the world. With Charlotte's care, he became a happy, loved companion. Every time he greeted her with his sweet hello, Charlotte felt lucky to have found such an extraordinary friend. That's all for today. If you found this story moving, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more heartwarming animal tales here on the Animal World. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.